So I was scrolling through Twitter the other day and I came across this. Ireland have to lose their next game to qualify for Euro 2024. And I was like, nah. So then I did a bit of research and it turns out it's actually correct. Sort of. But how? How can that possibly be true? Well, it's all because of... Since it started, the Nations League has been used to determine either all or some of the playoff places available for European World Cup qualification and for qualification to the Euros. The way this is done, along with the actual structure of the Nations League itself, has changed pretty much every 2 years. For Euro qualifying this year, there are 10 groups of either 5 or 6 teams, and the top 2 in each group will qualify directly for the finals. But there are 12 other teams that will enter into a playoff tournament to decide the remaining 3 slots at the finals. These teams are all selected based on their performance in the Nations League. It's now mathematically impossible for Ireland to end up in the top 2 of their group, so their only chance of qualifying is now to go through the playoffs. For Euro 2020, if a country didn't finish in the top 2 of their qualifying group, they could have been eligible for a playoff place depending on their performance in the 2018-19 Nations League. Winning your group, regardless of the league you're in, would guarantee you a spot. If some of the group winners had already qualified directly, then their playoff slot would go to the next best ranked team in the same league. If there was no other team left in that league to give the slot to, because they had already qualified directly, it would go down to the next best team in the overall rankings. In the 2022 World Cup, it was different, as most of the playoff slots are given to teams for finishing second in their qualifying group. But there were 2 playoff slots available, and they went to the 2 highest ranked group winners from the 2021 Nations League, who finished outside the top 2 in their qualifying group. So that was Austria and the Czech Republic. So what's different for 2024? Well, for one, no League D team is now guaranteed a playoff slot. The best ranked League D team, Estonia, only goes to the playoffs if one of the other leagues has fewer than 4 teams who don't qualify directly, which will probably happen this time around. After Estonia, any extra slots coming from League A will go to the next best ranked team in the overall ranking, as only 3 out of the 16 League A teams are currently sitting outside of the top 2 in their groups, those being Croatia, Italy and Poland. One of the League A slots goes to Estonia, but there's no more to be given out. If we take a look at League B, where Ireland are sitting, you can see there are currently 6 teams on course to qualify directly. As 3rd and 4th ranked teams, Serbia and Scotland are 2 of those, their playoff slots go down first of all to Finland, and then as Ukraine are also on course to qualify directly, it skips them and goes down to Iceland. So Ireland need 2 more teams above them to qualify directly in order for a playoff spot to drop down to them. It's now impossible for Norway to qualify directly, so a playoff slot can't skip over them, like it currently would with Slovenia. Finland and Bosnia are also guaranteed to finish outside the top 2. Of course, they would also need the teams above them who are currently in the top 2 to stay there, as if, for example, Italy move into the top 2 of their group, Ukraine would drop out, meaning the playoff spot would just switch from one to the other and Ireland would be no closer to a playoff spot. So, what needs to happen for Ireland to get into the playoffs? Well, if Israel can manage to qualify directly and it's Romania who drop out, not Switzerland, then we would see a playoff spot go down to Norway. If it's Israel and Romania who qualify and Switzerland who drop out, then nothing would change, as the playoff slot would just change hands from Israel to Switzerland, 2 teams who are both above Ireland in the rankings. And if Iceland can leapfrog Luxembourg and Slovakia into second place in Group J, we would also see a playoff slot drop down 1 more place to Ireland. So, assuming all the other teams above Ireland currently in the top 2 stay there, these 2 events happening would put Ireland in the playoffs. Israel qualifying instead of Romania and Iceland qualifying. Okay, quick editing correction, I've worded this incorrectly. Ireland don't need all the other teams above them currently in the top 2 to stay there. If Italy go above Ukraine, that wouldn't affect Ireland at all. Long story short, I'm an idiot, but the take home point is that Italy going above Ukraine wouldn't help Ireland, and that Israel needs to qualify instead of Romania and not Switzerland. It doesn't just matter who climbs into the top 2, but also who drops out. But anyway, back to the video. So, how does this mean Ireland need to lose their next game? Well, let's take a good look at Group B. Either one of the Netherlands or Greece will qualify in second place. If it's Greece, who are in League C, then Netherlands would go into the playoffs, taking Estonia's spot from them and putting Ireland 3rd in the queue, meaning even if the 2 miracles Ireland need to happened, they'd still be 1 place off a playoff spot. If the Dutch can maintain their place in second and qualify directly, then Ireland's path to their own playoff slot would remain open. Greece and the Netherlands are currently level on points. Greece have 1 game left against France and the Netherlands have 2 games left against Ireland and Gibraltar. As the Netherlands have a better head-to-head record, Greece needs to better Holland's point tally in order to finish above them. So either Greece draw against France and the Netherlands lose against both Ireland and Gibraltar, or Greece beat France and the Netherlands only pick up a maximum of 2 points from those 2 games. The Netherlands only need 3 points to guarantee qualification and leave open a route for Ireland to get that playoff spot. Obviously, the chance of the Netherlands not beating Gibraltar is very low, so they'll probably get those 3 points regardless of the outcome against Ireland. But they're not guaranteed to beat Gibraltar, and Ireland could take this into their own hands by, well, losing. If they just lose against the Netherlands, they will ensure that the Netherlands get those 3 points and qualify. They'll still have to wait for Iceland and Israel to pull it out of the bag, but they'd be guaranteeing themselves a chance. I can't imagine they will actually throw away the game, given the extreme unlikelihood of both Greece beating France and the Netherlands failing to beat Gibraltar, and the unlikelihood of both Israel and Iceland helping Ireland out, even if the Netherlands qualify directly. But it must have crossed Stephen Kenny's mind. I noticed there were a fair few people talking about this, but most either just didn't explain how any of it works in any depth or just got it wrong. But if you want to follow anyone who knows what they're on about when it comes to UEFA qualifying and all that, I'd recommend giving this account on Twitter a follow. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Nations League. It's rid us of those international breaks full of torturous friendlies, and all European teams now have more competitive fixtures against sides of a similar standard. Before, apart from at major tournaments, England would only play other big sides competitively if we got unlucky in the draw for qualifying. Although we didn't exactly have a good time of it in the last Nations League, playing more regular games against top sides can only be good for our progression. Equally, at the other end of the spectrum, the likes of San Marino, Liechtenstein and Andorra actually have a chance of winning competitive games of football. Rather than turning up knowing you'll get battered every month, they can play in tight games against similarly skilled opposition, without which the path for improvement for these teams looks very difficult. Having said all that, I don't think the Nations League should be used to decide qualification spots for other tournaments. Not only does it bring up situations like this one, which could have been far worse and in greater number, but there's also the glaring issue that if you're a team like Montenegro, let's say, you'd be far better off in League C than you would in League B. In League C, you have a very good chance of winning your group, which guarantees a playoff spot. In League B, when you're competing against the likes of Serbia and Ukraine, you probably won't come close. So relegation to League C actually becomes a good strategy. If we are going to go on using the Nations League in this way, I think we should at least just take the 12 best ranked teams who didn't qualify directly, rather than taking into account the group winners of each league. Whilst this wouldn't make it impossible for scenarios like Ireland's to come up in the future, Ireland's specific situation wouldn't have actually come to pass, as they would already be going to the playoffs. It also, of course, completely gets rid of the incentives to get relegated to a lower league for a better chance at a playoff spot. But what do you think? Do you like things the way they are? Can you think of any other ways to implement this? As for me, I'm going to be sitting here waiting for Shane Duffy to smash it into the roof of his own net and send Ireland to the playoffs.